My son called me pathetic while plotting to steal my life's work, my dignity, my freedom. He thought my grief had broken me. He was about to learn that this old judge still knew how to deliver a sentence. The smell of cinnamon and expensive leather filled my car. It was the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Traffic was a nightmare, bumper to bumper, but I didn't mind. Not today. I looked at the passenger seat. Gifts piled high, overflowing. I loved this time of year. A time for family, a time for gratitude. If you're listening, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone, because that afternoon I thought I had everything. I was so wrong. My arms still ached from carrying everything. For my grandchildren, Emma and Liam, I had nearly emptied the city's best toy shop, a massive dollhouse for Emma, a state-of-the-art drone for Liam. They were the light of my life. For Sarah, my daughter-in-law, I found the diamond tennis bracelet she'd been eyeing for months. She deserved it. She was a good mother, a good wife to my son. And for Michael, my son, my heir, a vintage Rolex. It wasn't just a watch. It was a symbol of the legacy I was passing down, a legacy I built over 40 grueling years. My name is David Harrison. I built Harrison & Vance, one of the most respected law firms in the state. I even wore the robes, serving as a superior court judge for a decade. It was a life of long hours, high-stakes cases, constant pressure. I missed dinners, I missed school plays. I regretted that, but I did it all for Michael, so he would never struggle the way I did. I did it to build a legacy of integrity, a legacy of success. The holidays were always hard. My wife Elizabeth passed away 5 years ago. Cancer, it took her fast. The silence in my large, empty house was often deafening. Grief is a shadow. It never truly leaves. I rubbed my wedding ring, a habit I developed after she was gone. But seeing Emma and Liam's faces light up helped. Hearing Michael talk about his latest case at the firm, my firm, eased the ache. He was taking over completely next year. I was proud. I felt secure. I felt like I had done my job. I pulled into the high-end shopping center one last time. I needed a specific bottle of vintage scotch, Michael's favorite. The mall was decorated lavishly. Towering Christmas trees, twinkling lights. I felt a deep sense of accomplishment. I had provided well. My family was happy, secure, or so I thought. I found the scotch, paid the exorbitant price, walked back toward my car. The air was crisp, cold, promising winter. I pulled out my phone, time to head to their early Thanksgiving dinner. Just leaving the mall now, be there in 30. I texted Michael. His reply came almost immediately. Kay, see you soon? Brief, cold. But Michael was busy. Managing partner now. Ambitious, driven, just like me. I dismissed the chill in his tone. I shouldn't have. I was about to start the car. My phone buzzed again. The screen lit up. A new message from Robert Vance. Robert was my law partner, my best friend since the first day of law school, the only man I trusted implicitly. The message was short. It hit me like a physical blow. The blood drained from my face. Don't go to dinner tonight. There's something you need to know about your son. What he told me changed everything. I stopped breathing. I stared at the words. The cheerful holiday music playing over the mall speakers suddenly sounded distorted, menacing. I read the message again and again. The words didn't make sense. My blood ran cold. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic, uneven rhythm. What could possibly be wrong? Was Michael sick? Had there been an accident? I fumbled with my phone, my hands clumsy, trembling. I tried to call Robert, straight to voicemail. Panic clawed at my throat. Robert always answered. Always. Then another text. Meet me at the office. Now. Use the service entrance. Don't tell anyone you're coming. David, this is urgent. The office? At this hour? The urgency terrified me. Robert was the most level-headed man I knew. He never exaggerated. If he was acting like this, something catastrophic had happened. The secrecy. It made my stomach twist into painful knots. Why the service entrance? Why the silence? I looked at the gifts. The Rolex box? The sparkling bracelet? The brightly wrapped toys? Symbols of my love. My success. They suddenly felt heavy, utterly meaningless. I started the car, tires screeching as I pulled out of the parking lot. I broke every speed limit getting downtown. My mind raced. Every terrible possibility played out. Michael was my only child. He was my world. What kind of trouble was he in? The firm, Harrison and Vance, occupied the top 3 floors of a sleek downtown skyscraper. I pulled into the dimly lit service alley. My hands shook on the steering wheel. The alley was empty, dark. Robert was waiting by the heavy steel door, pacing nervously. He was chewing on the end of his glasses, something he only did when things were very bad. His face was pale, drawn tight with stress. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Robert, what is it?" I demanded, jumping out of the car. My voice echoed in the alley. "What's happened to Michael? Is he hurt?" Robert didn't speak. He just grabbed my arm. His grip surprisingly strong. He pulled me inside. The steel doors slammed shut behind us. The sound echoed like a gunshot. He led me through the gray, echoing maintenance corridors, toward the freight elevator. The air was cold, smelled like dust and machine oil. "Robert, talk to me," I pleaded, as the elevator doors closed, sealing us in the claustrophobic space. The silence was suffocating. "Not here," he whispered, staring at the floor, unable to meet my eyes. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. He looked broke, and that scared me more than anything. Waketh, Robert was broken. The world was ending. The elevator opened directly into the main corridor of our executive floor. It was dark. The only light came from the city skyline through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The familiar space, usually bustling with activity and power. Now it felt eerie, like a tomb. Robert led me to the main conference room, the heart of our firm. When I walked in, I stopped short. Kevin, one of our sharpest young associates, was sitting at the long mahogany table. He looked up when I entered, his eyes wide with fear. He was maybe 25, brilliant, but terrified. He was rapidly clicking a pen, a sound that grated on my nerves. In front of him were stacks of folders, binders, bank statements, a laptop glowing in the dark. "Kevin, what are you doing here?" I asked, confusion mixing with my fear. Kevin was a brilliant researcher, but he was still junior staff. Why was he involved in this? Robert closed the conference room door, turned the lock. The click echoed in the silent room. It felt final. He walked to the head of the table, his expression grim. "David," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how to tell you this. I prayed I was wrong." He paused, rubbing his temples. "I spent the last 2 weeks tearing everything apart, hoping I had made a mistake. I brought Kevin in 48 hours ago, when I realized the scope of it." "The scope of what?" I shouted. My patience gone. The fear was turning into anger. "If my son is in trouble, I need to know. Is it drugs? Gambling? Did he hurt someone?" "He is in trouble, David," Robert said softly. The softness was worse than shouting, but not the kind you think. "Sit down." I didn't want to sit. I wanted answers. But my knees felt weak. I collapsed into the leather chair. The same chair where I had negotiated multi-million-dollar deals. Now I felt small, helpless. Robert motioned to Kevin. "Show him," Robert ordered. His voice flat, dead. Kevin opened a thick binder, slid it across the table toward me. It contained bank statements. The firm's primary client trust accounts. Money we held for our clients. Sacred money. "David, Michael has been moving money," Robert said. I stared at the numbers. Large sums transferred out. Over the past year, not hundreds of thousands, millions. "What?" I whispered, horrified. The air left the room. "This is client money. That's impossible. The protocols, the dual authorizations. I have to sign off on anything substantial." He bypassed the protocols, Kevin interrupted, his voice trembling. He looked at me, his eyes filled with pity. Pity I didn't want. "He used your credentials, Mr. Harrison." I looked at him blankly. "My credentials?" "He cloned your security fob," Kevin explained, pointing to a technical report. "When you were on vacation last summer, the fishing trip in Maine. He forged the authorizations, digitally and physically. The fishing trip Michael insisted I take, to relax, to grieve, to get me out of the office." I felt the blood drain from my face. My son, stealing from our clients, using my name. It wasn't just theft. It was the ultimate betrayal of our professional ethics. The law I dedicated my life to upholding, everything I stood for. Everything I taught him. No, I said, shaking my head, desperate to deny the reality staring back at me. There must be an explanation, a mistake in the accounting, an error in the system. I couldn't accept it. The boy I raised, the man I mentored, he wouldn't commit such a catastrophic violation. I was grasping for anything, any alternative to this devastating truth. Robert didn't flinch. He just slid another folder toward me. This one was heavier. The money isn't going to another firm account, David, Robert said. It's going offshore, to the Cayman Islands. He paused, letting the words sink in. To an account only he and Sarah control. Sarah, my daughter-in-law, she was involved too. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. They were a team working against me. I opened the folder, wire transfer confirmations. Dozens of them. My signature was at the bottom of each one, but it wasn't my signature. It was a perfect forgery, flawless. The reality began to sink in, cold and heavy. It settled in the pit of my stomach like a stone. How much? I asked, dreading the answer. My voice was barely a rasp. Robert hesitated. He looked at Kevin. Kevin looked down. As far as we can tell, Robert finally said, his voice cracking. Nearly $5 million. $5 million. I couldn't breathe. I gripped the edge of the mahogany table to steady myself. The wood felt cold under my sweaty palms. If this came out, the firm was finished. We would be disbarred. We would face criminal charges. My entire life's work, gone. Destroyed. I thought of the Rolex I had just bought him. The tuition I paid for law school. The car I bought him when he passed the bar. The massive down payment on his house. I had given him everything, and it wasn't enough. Why? I choked out, the word catching in my throat. He was going to take over the firm. He had everything. It seems everything wasn't enough, Robert replied, his voice laced with a bitterness I had never heard before. Then his next words chilled me to the bone. And it gets worse, David. Much worse. I looked up. How could it possibly get worse than stealing $5 million? Robert nodded to Kevin again. Kevin opened the laptop and turned the screen toward me. It was filled with emails, encrypted messages, and transaction logs. He's not just stealing money, David, Robert said, his voice low and dangerous. He's been destroying evidence in major cases we are currently litigating. I stared at the screen, unable to process what I was seeing. He's been bribing officials, Kevin added, pointing to a series of coded payments. And we tracked payments that suggest jury tampering in the Westfield case, and others. The Westfield case, our biggest corporate litigation. We won that case, but now I realized we didn't win. We cheated. He's turned Harrison and Vance into a criminal enterprise, Robert finished. The words hung in the air, heavy and toxic. The depth of the corruption was staggering. It wasn't just greed. It was a systematic dismantling of the justice system. He hadn't just betrayed me. He had betrayed everything I stood for. The law, justice, integrity, the very foundation of my life. I felt sick. I was blind. Robert pointed to a specific file. He even stole from Arthur Hayes. Arthur Hayes, our biggest client, a ruthless billionaire known for his vindictiveness. If Hayes found out, he wouldn't just sue. He would destroy Michael. But the real betrayal was still waiting in the shadows. Robert picked up a sleek, legal-sized document binder from the floor beside his chair. It looked official, expensive. Fine. This, Robert said, his voice shaking with suppressed rage, is the real reason I told you not to go to dinner tonight, David. He handed me the binder. My hands trembled as I took it. I opened it. The words blurred before my eyes. But the legal terminology was unmistakable. I knew it instantly. It was a petition for emergency conservatorship. What is this? I whispered, horrified, the implications hitting me instantly. Michael drafted it, Robert said, his voice shaking with a rage I had never seen in him before. He's filing a motion tomorrow morning. First thing, I looked at the name of the person to be conserved. David Harrison. He's filing a motion to have you declared mentally incompetent. The room spun. Incompetent? Me? I was still sharper than any lawyer in this city. I was a judge. I built this empire. On what grounds? I demanded, my voice rising again, fueled by a sudden, desperate anger. This is absurd. It's slander. Grief, Robert said. The word hung in the air like a poison. He's claiming that since Elizabeth died, you've become erratic. Paranoid, unable to manage your affairs. I felt a cold dread spread through my chest. He's citing your occasional forgetfulness. Robert continued, reading from a page in the binder. The moments you've broken down at the office. The prescriptions you take for anxiety. I remembered those moments. The days when the weight of losing Elizabeth was too much to bear. The panic attacks that sometimes crippled me. The grief that would overwhelm me without warning. Michael had been there. He had comforted me. He held my hand. He told me to take time off. He suggested I see a therapist. He encouraged me to take the medication. He seemed so caring, so supportive. The realization was monstrous. He was using my pain against me. He was weaponizing my love for my wife to steal my life. The sheer cruelty of it almost broke me, making me question everything. Had my grief truly blinded me to the monster my son had become? How could I have been so vulnerable, so stupid? He was gathering evidence, I whispered, the horror dawning on me. The pieces clicked into place, forming a hideous picture. Every time he asked how I was sleeping, every time he supported me, he was building a case. Yes, Robert confirmed. And he wasn't alone. Robert flipped to a new page. An affidavit. Sworn statements against me. He got Maria Sanchez to sign this. Robert said, Maria, our housekeeper for 20 years. She loved Elizabeth. She loved me. I thought she was family. Maria? I asked, shocked. Why would she betray me? Why would she lie? He manipulated her, Robert said grimly. He told her you were in danger, that this was the only way to protect you. He twisted her concern into evidence of incompetence. He used the people I trusted. He turned my grief into a weapon. He made me look insane. I looked at the second page of the petition. There was another signature next to Michael's. Sarah, my daughter-in-law, the woman I treated like a daughter, the diamond bracelet in my car, suddenly felt like a betrayal. The expensive gifts, the lavish lifestyle Michael and Sarah lived, the vacations to Europe, the designer clothes, the private schools for Emma and Liam. I thought I was supplementing their income. I thought they were successful, but now I realized the truth. They were funding their entire life with the money Michael was stealing. I had been admiring their success, while they were robbing me blind, and they were about to take the rest. Why tonight? I asked, my voice hollow. My mind was racing. Why the early Thanksgiving dinner? It was a trap, David, Robert explained. His face was grim. They were planning to serve you these papers tonight, at the dinner table, over turkey and cranberry sauce. They wanted to catch you off guard, Robert continued. His tone urgent now, surrounded by family. Relaxed, unsuspecting. They had a notary and 2 police officers waiting down the street from their house. Right now, police officers, at my son's house, to take me away. Once you were served, Robert continued, the emergency conservatorship would take immediate effect. You would have been escorted out of your own son's house, possibly hospitalized for evaluation. Tonight, they wanted to humiliate me. They wanted to take control of my assets. The firm, everything, before I could expose their crimes. They wanted to make me disappear. How did you find out? I asked Robert. My voice was barely a whisper, my mind struggling to process the depth of the betrayal. Robert looked at Kevin. Kevin overheard them, Robert said. Yesterday, in the parking garage, Kevin looked ashamed. He nervously adjusted his glasses. I wasn't spying, Mr. Harrison. I swear. I was just getting my car. It was late. Michael and Mrs. Harrison were arguing, loudly. What did they say? I demanded. I needed to hear it. I needed to know the depth of their cruelty. Kevin hesitated. He looked terrified. Then he spoke in a rush. Michael was nervous. He was worried you might fight back, that you might suspect something. He paused. Taking a deep breath, Sarah told him not to worry, that the judge they selected, Judge Amelia Chen, was already in their pocket. They said she owed them a favor. Judge Chen. I knew her, ambit, organizing, but I never thought she was corrupt. Another betrayal. The corruption ran deeper than I thought. It stained everything I believed in. And then Michael said, Kevin paused again. This time he looked physically ill. Tell me, I ordered, he said. It's amazing how easy it was to fool the old man. He's so desperate for us to love him, he never saw it coming. Kevin looked up at me, his eyes filled with sorrow. He's pathetic. Pathetic. The word pierced my heart. The disrespect. The utter lack of empathy. The contempt. They saw my love as weakness. They saw my grief as an opportunity. They saw me as an obstacle, an inconvenience to be removed. I felt a cold, paralyzing rage replace the shock and pain. A rage I hadn't felt since my early days as a prosecutor. I had spent my life fighting for justice, and now my own flesh and blood were trying to steal my life and my dignity. I want them arrested, I said, my voice low, dangerous. The voice of a judge. Not a father. I want them destroyed. Robert put a hand on my shoulder, trying to calm me, trying to reason with me. David, think about this, he said, his voice cautious. If this goes public, we are all ruined. The embezzlement from the client trust accounts. It happened under our watch. Your watch, he was right. The legal implications were catastrophic. The firm is finished, Robert continued. Your reputation, everything you've worked for, gone. We could face charges ourselves, for negligence, for failing to supervise. He was right, and the realization trapped me. Michael was counting on this. He was counting on me wanting to keep it quiet, to protect the firm, to protect the legacy I built for him. I faced an impossible choice. Seek justice and destroy my life's work, or maintain the facade and lose my freedom and dignity. The weight of this decision was crushing. So what do we do? I asked. The helplessness threatened to overwhelm me, the rage fading into despair. Do I just let him take everything? Do I let him lock me away? Do I let him win? No, Robert said firmly, his eyes hardening. We fight back, but we do it smartly. We use the law. He looked at me, a flicker of the old fire returning to his eyes. We were lawyers before we were victims, David. Remember that. And we were damn good ones. He was right. I wasn't a helpless old man. I was David Harrison. We spent the next 2 hours strategizing. The conference room became a war room. The air crackled with energy, the desperate, dangerous energy. Kevin worked furiously on the laptop, tracing the money transfers, compiling the evidence of Michael's criminal activities, securing the firm's electronic files before Michael could delete them. We were building our case. We need leverage, Robert said, pacing the floor. We need something that will force him to back down. Something that scares him more than losing the money. The embezzlement, the bribery, the jury tampering, I said. That's enough to send him to prison for life. That's our leverage.
Yes, Robert agreed.
But we need to confront him before he files that petition. If he files it, even if we eventually win, the damage is done. He stopped pacing, looked at me grimly. Your competency will be questioned publicly. The scandal will still destroy us. We have to stop him tonight. We needed to neutralize the threat immediately. We needed something explosive. We use Arthur Hayes, I said. The plan was forming. It was ruthless. It was dangerous. It was perfect. Michael is terrified of him. If he thinks Hayes knows about the theft, he might panic. He might confess. Just as we planned, I felt a wave of nausea. I was plotting against my own son. I was prepared to destroy the life of the boy I had raised, the boy I had loved unconditionally, the boy whose pictures still hung on the walls of my office. Was I prioritizing my career over my son? Was I being selfish? The internal battle raged within me, the grief mixing with the rage in a toxic cocktail. I felt myself hesitate. Robert saw the hesitation in my eyes. He knew me too well. David, he said gently, but firmly, placing both hands on my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. Michael made his choice. He has already destroyed the family. He has betrayed you in the worst possible way. He paused, letting the words sink in. This is not about legacy or career anymore. This is about survival. This is about justice. Then he said the words that galvanized me. Think about Elizabeth. What would she want you to do, Elizabeth? My wife. My moral compass. She believed in honesty, in integrity, in consequences. She would have been devastated by Michael's actions, but she would have demanded justice. He was right. The man planning this monstrous act was not the boy I remembered. Not Elizabeth's son. He was a stranger wearing my son's face. A predator. The realization didn't lessen the pain, but it clarified my purpose. I wasn't attacking my son. I was defending myself against a criminal who happened to share my blood. I took a deep breath, the resolve hardening within me. The old judge was back. Let's do it. The plan was set. But it was risky. It relied on surprise, Michael's arrogance, and the weight of the evidence we had gathered. We needed a confession. We needed him to admit to the extortion, the coercion. Robert made a call. Agent Miller? It's Robert Vance. It's time. Agent Miller. Robert's contact at the FBI. White-collar crime division. He was already reviewing the evidence Kevin sent him, ready to execute the financial lockdowns. Robert would wait outside Michael's house, in his car, ready to coordinate with the FBI the moment I gave the signal. Kevin would be at the office, ready to send the anonymous tip to Arthur Hayes. The moment I gave the signal, I was going into the lion's den. Alone, I drove to Michael's house. The traffic had cleared. The streets were quiet, lined with beautiful houses. Decorated for the holidays, the neighborhood was affluent, exclusive, a world built on the illusion of success. A world I gave him. If this story has kept you on the edge of your seat so far, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. It helps our channel grow and bring more stories like this to light. Because the real fight was just beginning. I looked at the gifts in the passenger seat again. The watch, the bracelet, the toys, symbols of a love that had been betrayed. I picked up the Rolex box, the weight of it heavy in my hand. I put it in my pocket. I left the rest of the gifts in the car. They didn't belong in that house. I parked in the driveway of Michael's large, imposing house. It was a beautiful home, warm light spilling from the windows, the sound of classical music and laughter coming from inside. It looked like the perfect picture of a happy family Thanksgiving. But it was a facade, a lie, built on stolen money and betrayal. I walked to the front door, my heart heavy. But my resolve, I activated the voice recorder on my phone, slipped it into my jacket pocket. I rang the doorbell. The door swung open. Michael stood there, a glass of wine in his hand, a broad smile plastered on his face. He looked handsome, successful. The spitting image of me when I was his age. The resemblance chilled me. Dad, you made it. He sounded relieved. We were starting to worry. Traffic must have been brutal. He clapped me on the back, pulled me inside. The house smelled amazing. Roasting turkey, spices, baking bread. The warmth of the house contrasted sharply with the coldness in my chest. David, happy Thanksgiving. Sarah rushed over from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an expensive-looking apron. She kissed me on the cheek. You look tired, she said, her voice laced with fake concern. Come in, sit down. Let me get you a drink. Scotch? The good stuff? Her performance was flawless. The concern in her eyes, the warmth in her voice. If I didn't know the truth, I would have believed she loved me. I would have believed they both did. The betrayal stung deeper because of the performance. Looked around the living room. Emma and Liam were playing on the floor, dressed in their holiday best. My heart ached seeing them. My grandchildren, innocent victims in their parents' greed, pawns in their cruel game. For a fleeting second, I considered turning around, finding a quieter way to handle this, to protect them from the trauma of what was about to happen. But I knew Michael. He would use them as leverage if I didn't act decisively. Now, he would destroy me to save himself. Grandpa, Liam shouted, running toward me. I hugged him tightly, breathing in the scent of childhood innocence, a scent that didn't belong in this house of lies. Go wash your hands, sweetie, Sarah said, pulling him away gently. Too gently. Dinner is almost ready." The children ran off toward the bathroom. We were alone. The trap was about to be sprung. "Let's eat," Michael said, leading me toward the dining room. "Sarah outdid herself this year." We walked into the dining room. The table was set beautifully. Fine china, crystal glasses, a massive turkey in the center. It was a feast fit for a king, and there it was, on the sideboard, partially hidden under a silver serving platter, a legal-sized envelope. The petition. Their arrogance was staggering. "Go ahead, Dad. Sit down," Michael said, motioning to the chair at the head of the table. My chair, the seat of honor. I didn't move. I stood in the doorway, looking at my son, really looking at him, for the first time in years. "I'm not hungry," I said, my voice cold and steady. Michael paused, his smile faltering slightly, the mask slipping. "What?" "Don't be silly. It's Thanksgiving. You have to eat. We have so much to be thankful for. We need to talk, Michael, about the firm, about Arthur Hayes." I threw the name out like a grenade. Michael flinched. Fear flickered in his eyes. He knew Hayes's reputation. Sarah exchanged a nervous glance with Michael. Her eyes darted toward the sideboard, the envelope. She twisted a strand of her hair nervously. "Pleaded. Can it wait until after dinner, David?" she asked, her voice tight. "The food is getting cold. We have some things to discuss later. Some paperwork." She was trying to stick to the script where they ambushed me after dinner. "No, it can't wait." I walked slowly to the sideboard, picked up the envelope. It felt heavy in my hand, like a death sentence. I held it up. "Looking for this?" I asked. "The petition for emergency conservatorship." Michael's face went pale, gray. The glass of wine slipped from his hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. The red wine spread like blood. Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. The facade crumbled. The performance was over. "Dad, I don't know what you're talking about," Michael stammered, taking a step back, his eyes darting toward the door, looking for an escape. He adjusted his cuffs. Another tell. He was lying. That's just some estate planning documents. "We wanted to update your will." "Don't lie to me, Michael," I roared, the anger finally breaking through the calm facade. The rage I had suppressed for the last few hours erupting. "I know everything." I threw the envelope on the table. It landed with a loud smack. "I know about the embezzlement. The $5 million from the client trust accounts. I know about the offshore accounts in the Caymans." Sarah started to cry, soft whimpering sounds, but I saw the calculation in her eyes. She was already planning damage control. "I know about the bribery," I continued, my voice relentless. "The jury tampering. I know you bought Judge Chen." Michael flinched at the name. "And I know you were planning to have me declared incompetent tonight. Right here, at this table." Michael's shock quickly turned to cold fury. The polite, loving son vanished, replaced by a ruthless, arrogant man I didn't recognize. A monster. "So, the old man finally figured it out," he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. He wiped the spilled wine from his shoes with a linen napkin. His composure regained, arrogant. "I'm impressed, Dad. I really am. I thought you were too busy grieving, too lost in your memories of Mom, to notice what was happening right in front of you." The callousness of his words stunned me, using his mother's death as an insult. "How could you do this, Michael?" I asked, the pain evident in my voice, the father in me still searching for the son I loved. "How could you use your mother's death against me? I gave you everything. You gave me a burden," he shouted, his face twisting in rage, the entitlement pouring out of him, a legacy I never asked for. "Your precious firm, your outdated rules." He paced the dining room, like a caged animal. "I worked my butt off at the firm, modernizing, bringing in real money, while you sat in your ivory tower, clinging to your precious notions of justice and integrity. They don't mean anything in the real world, Dad. I built that firm from the ground up." I shot back. "I dedicated my life to the law, to integrity, and you refused to let go," he screamed, pointing a finger at me. "You held me back. You criticized my methods, my ambition. You treated me like a child, always looking over my shoulder." judging me. He stopped pacing, looked at me with cold hatred. It's my turn now, Dad. I deserve this. I deserve everything. The entitlement was staggering. The greed, the complete lack of morality. Deserve to steal from our clients? I asked, incredulous. Deserve to destroy my reputation? Deserve to lock me away in a nursing home? It's just business, Dad, he said coldly, shrugging as if we were discussing a merger. Not the destruction of a life. Survival of the fittest. You taught me that. He walked toward me, his expression arrogant, triumphant. You should have retired years ago. You're slipping. You're weak. He paused, a cruel smile playing on his lips. You're pathetic. The word hit me like a slap in the face. Pathetic. The word Kevin overheard. The word he truly felt about me. But this time, it didn't break me. It fueled me. He pointed to the envelope on the table. That petition is the truth, Dad. Whether you like it or not, you're not fit to run the firm. You're not fit to manage your own life. You're a liability. We have the affidavits. Maria Sanchez. The staff. Everyone sees it. Sarah stepped forward, her tears gone, her expression hard, her eyes cold as ice. The mask was completely gone now. We did what we had to do, David, she said, her voice sharp. We have a family to support, a lifestyle to maintain. Emma and Liam deserve the best. Using the children to justify their crimes. It was despicable. You have more money than you could ever spend, she continued, her voice rising. Why should we wait until you die to get what's ours? We are saving you from yourself, from your grief, from your incompetence. Saving me? I asked, laughing bitterly. By stealing my life. By destroying everything I built? Michael laughed too, a harsh, ugly sound. It's over, Dad. It's done. We have the evidence of your incompetence. The medical reports. The testimonies. We have the signatures. He tapped the envelope. Judge Chen is waiting for the filing tomorrow morning. By noon, I will be in control of the firm. Your assets. Everything. He took a step closer, invading my space. His expression triumphant. He thought he had won. There's nothing you can do about it. If you fight us, it will get messy. It will get public. He laid out the consequences. The blackmail. The scandal of your mental decline will destroy the firm, your reputation, everything you hold dear. You will lose everything anyway. This way is cleaner, quieter. He was banking on my desire to protect my legacy. He thought he had me cornered, trapped. But then he went too far. He delivered the ultimate betrayal, the threat that sealed his fate. If you fight me, he said, his voice low and menacing, his eyes locking on to mine, I promise you, I swear to God, you will never see Emma and Liam again. The silence that followed was deafening. I will cut you off completely, he continued, savoring the cruelty. You will die alone, in a state-run nursing home, forgotten by everyone, including your grandchildren. He was threatening to take my grandchildren away from me, the only light left in my life, the only connection I still had to Elizabeth, the only thing I cared about more than the firm. The rage that had been simmering beneath the surface erupted, but not in the way he expected. It didn't erupt into violence or shouting. It erupted into a cold, calculated clarity, the clarity of a judge delivering a sentence. I looked at my son, this monster I created, and I felt nothing. No love, no pain, only a profound sense of justice demanding to be served. You're right, Michael, I said softly, my voice calm, steady. It is over. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out my phone. I pressed play. Michael's voice filled the room, loud and clear from the recording I had just made. It's just business, Dad. Survival of the fittest. You should have retired years ago. You're slipping. You're weak. You're pathetic, Sarah gasped, her eyes wide with horror. Realizing what I had done, the recording continued. By noon, I will be in control of the firm, your assets. Everything, and the final damning threat, the one that would destroy them. If you fight me, I promise you, you will never see Emma and Liam again. I will cut you off completely. You will die alone. Michael's face turned ashen. The arrogance vanished, replaced by sheer terror. What is that? He stammered. his voice trembling. That, I said, is your confession. Evidence of extortion, coercion, fraud. I looked at him, my eyes cold. Evidence that will not only invalidate your fraudulent petition, but will also be presented in the criminal case against you. And Sarah, I pulled out another document from my coat pocket. This one was not a petition for conservatorship. I didn't come here for dinner, Michael. I came here to serve you. I handed him the document. It was a formal notification of immediate termination from the firm, along with a lawsuit for fraud, embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, and extortion. The firm's accounts have been frozen, I continued, my voice echoing in the silent room. A judge delivering a sentence. The offshore accounts you set up in the Caymans have been seized by the FBI. Agent Miller sends his regards. Michael stared at the papers, his hands shaking uncontrollably, the reality of his situation crashing down on him. Robert alerted them an hour ago, I said. I have already notified the Bar Association and the District Attorney's Office. Then I delivered the final blow, the one I knew would break him. And Arthur Hayes knows you stole his money. He received an anonymous tip just moments ago. He is not happy. Michael stumbled back. The mention Hayes paralyzed him with fear. Hayes was more dangerous than the FBI. Michael looked desperately at Sarah. She was sobbing uncontrollably, collapsing onto one of the expensive dining chairs, the lifestyle she cherished vanishing before her eyes. You can't do this, Michael screamed, turning back to me, his eyes wild with panic and rage. You're bluffing. The client money, the embezzlement. You'll be ruined too. The firm will collapse. I am willing to face the consequences of my negligence, I said. My voice steady. I was blind. I trusted my son. It will likely cost me my career, my reputation, my firm. I paused, looking at the ruins of my family. But I will not sacrifice my integrity. I will not let you destroy everything I stand for. I will ensure that justice is served, even if it means destroying myself in the process. You ruined me, he screamed, lunging at me, his face contorted in rage. You destroyed your own son, your own flesh and blood. No, Michael, I said sadly, stepping back. You destroyed yourself. You chose greed over loyalty. You chose betrayal over love. I looked him straight in the eye. You underestimated me. You thought I was weak. Pathetic. You were wrong. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the Rolex watch, the vintage Rolex I had bought him, just hours ago. I looked at it, the symbol of the legacy I wanted to pass down. A legacy he had rejected, a legacy he had destroyed. I threw it on the table. It landed on the fine china with a loud clatter, the sound echoing in the silent room. Happy Thanksgiving, I said. I turned to leave. The smell of the Thanksgiving dinner, once so inviting, now made me sick. I paused at the doorway to the living room. Emma and Liam were standing at the top of the stairs, looking down, confused and scared by the shouting. I looked at them, my grandchildren, my heart breaking. I wanted to hug them, to tell them everything would be okay. But I couldn't. Not now. Their future was uncertain, tainted by their parents' crimes. I walked out the door, leaving Michael and Sarah huddled together in their beautiful ruined dining room, surrounded by the wreckage of their greed, the sound of sirens approaching in the distance. Agent Miller had arrived. The fallout was swift and brutal. The news of the embezzlement and the criminal charges against Michael and Sarah broke the next morning. It was the biggest scandal the legal community had seen in decades. Harrison and Vance was front-page news. Michael and Sarah were arrested on Thanksgiving Day. Their arrests were public, humiliating. They lost everything. The house, the cars, the money, the lifestyle they had murdered their souls for. Arthur Hayes sued them personally, ensuring they would never see a dime of the stolen money. He also publicly condemned the firm's failure, accelerating our collapse. They pleaded guilty to multiple felonies: embezzlement, fraud, bribery, jury tampering, extortion. They were sentenced to 15 years in prison. Judge Amelia Chen was also indicted for corruption. Her career destroyed. The corruption was purged. As I predicted, the firm collapsed. The scandal was too great to overcome. The clients fled. The reputation I had spent 40 years building was destroyed overnight. Robert and I were investigated by the Bar Association. While we were cleared of criminal wrongdoing, thanks to our proactive cooperation with the FBI, we were forced to dissolve the partnership. We surrendered our licenses to practice law. My career was over. My legacy was in ruins. The months that followed were the darkest of my life. I had saved my integrity, but at the cost of everything else. My legacy, my career, my family. I sold my large, empty house. The house I had shared with Elizabeth. It was filled with too many memories, too much pain. I moved into a small apartment downtown. I spent my days volunteering at a legal aid clinic, helping people who couldn't afford a lawyer, people who had been wronged by the system. It was humbling work, stripping away the arrogance and privilege that had defined my life for so long. It felt real. It felt like justice. I reached out to Maria Sanchez. She apologized profusely for the affidavit. I forgave her. I knew Michael had manipulated her. Emma and Liam were placed in the custody of Sarah's parents. They were devastated, confused. Their world turned upside down. I tried to see them. I wrote them letters, sent them gifts, but their grandparents, fueled by anger and grief, blocked me at every turn. They blamed me for ruining their daughter's life, for sending the father of their grandchildren to prison. They saw me as the villain. Losing them was worse than losing the firm, worse than losing my career. It was a pain that never eased. A year passed. Slowly, painfully, it was Thanksgiving again. I sat alone in my small apartment, eating a takeout turkey dinner. The silence was heavy, filled with the ghosts of the past. I looked at a picture on the bookshelf. It was me, Elizabeth, and Michael, years ago. We were smiling, happy, a perfect family. A memory that felt like a dream, a lie. I missed my son, not the monster he became, but the boy he used to be. The boy I loved. The boy I had lost long before he went to prison. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door, and my heart stopped. It was Robert. He was holding a bottle of scotch, the same vintage I had tried to buy last year, the one that started it all. "I thought you could use some company," he said softly, a small smile playing on his lips. We sat in comfortable silence. Two old friends who had weathered the storm together, who had lost everything together, but survived. "I heard from the grandparents today," Robert said, swirling the scotch in his glass. He had been acting as an intermediary, trying to bridge the gap. I looked up, afraid to hope. "They are starting to soften," he continued. "They realize you weren't the villain in this story. They realize Michael and Sarah were the ones who destroyed their family." A flicker of hope ignited in my chest. "Are they going to let me see the children?" "Yes," Robert said, smiling. "Next weekend. They want you to come for dinner. They want you to be their grandpa again." Tears welled in my eyes. The relief was overwhelming, a weight lifting off my shoulders. A tear rolled down my cheek. I wasn't crying for what I lost. I was crying for what I still had. I realized then that while my professional legacy was gone, the firm, the money, the reputation, my true legacy remained. It wasn't the buildings or the bank accounts. It was the values I stood for: integrity, justice, love, values I had fought for, even when it cost me everything. Values I could still teach my grandchildren. I had lost my son, but I hadn't lost everything. I had my integrity. I had my friend, and soon I would have my grandchildren back. As I looked at Robert, the gratitude washed over me. I realized that the true meaning of family wasn't just about blood. It was about loyalty, respect, and the kind of love that endured even the darkest betrayal. It was a Thanksgiving unlike any other, quiet, simple. But for the first time in a long time, I felt truly thankful. I had survived, I was rebuilding, and I was finally at peace. Thanks for listening to my story. But it wasn't easy to tell. Please rate it in the comments. If you believe that integrity matters, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters. Thank you.